Hello and welcome back, everybody. If I could get your attention for just a moment, please. So thank you. I'm still Paul Godoldig. Nice to have you all here again. We're going to get started with the second part of our program. But there were some people I forgot to thank earlier, which is we have several board members here today. We've got our board chair, Michael Eisler. We've got Martin Tannenbaum. We've got Peter Ross, our past board chair. We have my predecessor and friend, Marcy Glazer, here today. David Green, other people from staff. And there's several people around the room who really were critical in building this place 25 years ago. So it's just great to see people with long histories here, people who it's their first day in the building. So thank you all for coming together. Hope everyone is feeling well-fed and doing well. This is a wonderful example of what we do, the magic that can happen at the JCCSF, where people come together for community, for culture, for great food, for connection. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our remarkable guests. Niki Russ Federman is a fourth-generation co-owner of Russ and Daughters, the legendary Appetizing store her great-grandfather opened in 1914. She's expanded the brand to cafes, a restaurant, and nationwide shipping, by the way, and is a James Beard Award winner. All right. Josh Russ Tupper, Niki's cousin and co-owner, left a career in engineering to bring his talents to the family business, helping usher Russ and Daughters into a new era while preserving its soul. Together, they've created Russ and Daughters 100 Years of Appetizing, a beautiful celebration of food, family, and Jewish culture. So come on up, Josh. And leading today's conversation is Rabbi Sydney Mintz of Congregation Emmanuel, who also told me earlier today, I didn't know this, that her first job when she landed in San Francisco was right here at the JCC, running teen programs and driving a van. So we want to thank her for her warmth, her humor, and ability to bring tradition to life in a modern world. And we couldn't ask for a better guide for this conversation. So come on up, please, Rabbi Sydney Mintz.
Thank you so much. First of all, a round of applause for the JCC. And it was such an honest sigh of relief when the food came out. Not just because you had been waiting for a few minutes, but just real New York appetizing here in San Francisco. We have our own style here, but we do not have anything, right, like Russ and Daughters in San Francisco. So thank you for bringing that here to us. It is such an honor to be here with these two Russ disciples, the inheritors of this incredible tradition. And I'll tell you, as much as I knew about deli food, literally a few weeks ago, I found out that Russ and Daughters is not a deli. It's not a deli, it's an appetizing store. So I also didn't know that appetizing could be a noun. How many people have heard of appetizing as a noun before? Look at that. So maybe you were born in New York and knew it. I was thrilled to have this opportunity because we're going to get to explore not only their family traditions, what it's like for them to now be the fourth generation proprietors of such an illustrious family history and tradition, but also to celebrate 100 years and this beautiful, beautiful cookbook, which is, what I love about this book is it's full of history. And right now at a time in the world, we need to celebrate things that are beautiful and healthy and delicious about being Jewish. Wouldn't you agree? Yes. So to start out, it is wonderful that you made the schlep all the way out to the West Coast and that you brought the deliciousness with you. I wanted to start out, and either one of you, just start out, tell us, when you were kids, did you ever imagine that you were going to be in this business? Why don't you start out, Niki?
Well, I grew up a shop kid because Russ and Daughters was a literal mom and pop for me. It was my mother and father who ran the store for 30 years before Josh and I came into it. And so I grew in and around the store, the Lower East Side. One of my earliest memories, I think I was probably 5 or so, was my first job. Was I would wait by our door, and if you've been to our original store, you know there's one door into this shoebox of a store, and everything comes in and out of those doors. Customers, deliveries, packages, and I would stand there and wait for the produce delivery guys to come. And they had hand trucks, and they would wheel in 50-pound sacks of onions, tomatoes, carrots, whatever we had ordered. And I would climb on top and sit on the top sack. And they would wheel me through the store, and I directed them to the back where our kitchen and storage is. And I thought that without me, they were going to get lost. And if you know our store, there's nowhere to get lost. There's an appetizing counter on one side, there's the sweets counter on the other, and then it's just a straight, path. But growing up, I never thought this was what I was going to do. I was encouraged. I grew up working in the store, holidays, weekends, that kind of thing. But I was definitely encouraged to do something other. And it was a process to really come into my own, check other things off my list, and then I kind of took stock of things and realized that actually to be part of a yichus, to be part of a lineage, was not the burden that I once thought it was, and it was actually quite a gift to be kind of take on the mantle of and create a new chapter for this store.
Yeah, that's amazing. Also, you said it's like a dynasty. It's really like the Russ family is like a dynastic. It's almost like a Hasidic dynastic family, but Hasidic in the appetizing place.
If you come into the store, there's a big portrait of our great-grandfather, Joel Russ, and it's in this gold frame, and it's kind of tilted, and so he looks down at us with like Mona Lisa eyes and kind of tracks
right.
us.
He's like the Menachem Mendel Schneerson of
Exactly.
appetizing, right?
It's the appetizing Messiah.
Yeah, exactly, the appetizing
He hasn't
Messiah.
come back yet, though.
Right. Well, he has come back through 4 generations. It's like your grandfather. Everybody should be a little bit of a mystic, right? In this world, we need mysticism. Your grandfather and that vision of serving and of comforting and of nurturing through food lives in this generation because of the two of you. And Josh, tell us, you came a little bit through a different, and then also unpack a little bit, how are the two of you related, and then how that came down through the lineage, and how did you get in the door of the appetizing store?
First of all, Niki and I are first cousins. We have the same grandmother who was one of the daughters, and Joel Russ was our great-grandfather. I have kind of a different story. My mother was sort of the black sheep of that generation and raised me in an ashram till I was 10. So in my 5-year-old scene, I was doing yoga and Tai Chi and learning Sanskrit while Niki was riding bags of onions. But my experience early on with the store was coming into the city. We were just upstate. The ashram was 45 miles north of the city, so it wasn't in India or anything. But we'd come in and see Niki and her family and my grandmother, who was on 3rd Avenue, Gramercy area, and come into the store, and I'd go and steal candy from behind the candy counter, which was sanctioned, I think, by the people working there, and like make off, abscond with all these like hard candies and licorice, but then go and have a Russ and daughter, the appetizing spread at my grandmother's house, where me and my cousin, our mutual cousin, would always get in trouble for bagel, cream cheese, and putting every type of smoked fish and herring on the same bagel. To which our grandmother would literally yell at us and be like, "What are you doing? Like, this is not how you eat this." And we're like, "Don't care." We were like competitive eating at that point, basically. But I rebelled from that and went to engineering school and was working as an engineer in the Pacific Northwest, and started speaking to my uncle, her father, about getting involved in the business when he was getting on in years and kind of looking for that exit strategy. And according to my story, I had convinced him. According to his story, Niki finally was like, I'm going to go leave and do my own thing. And Mark was exasperated and was like, come on back, Josh. Let's see if it works. And then for the next 4 or 5 years, made sure that I knew he wasn't sure if it was working yet, daily. But it worked.
It's definitely worked. It's worked, and it's working. Tell us some of the amazing parts of being in a family-run business, fourth generation, and the fact that I'll also ask you to touch on, you made it through one of the most difficult periods of time running a food business, which was COVID, and I thought, well, how did you do that? And we talked a little bit about the fact that you've had employees. Some of your employees have been with you for 30, 40 years. So tell us a little bit about how amazing it is, how challenging it is, and then what it was like to go through COVID.
It's well, first of all, we're in a very, very small club, not a formal club, but less than 1% of family businesses make it to a fourth generation. And there are so many reasons why family businesses, it's fraught, it's complicated. Would you want to work with your relatives? I mean, if Josh were my husband or my brother, this would have lasted all of 5 minutes.
We say we know the secret to family businesses. We have some family here, by the way, and no offense. The secret to a family business is as little family as possible.
But it is amazing because it's our family, 4 generations of our family. It's 4 generations of our customers' families. And so Russ and Daughters has been part of the life cycle of multiple generations of families. So there's this, we're tethered to our people because this food has been part of their lives, and Russ and Daughters has also been part of New York for 111 years. And so we're baked into the fabric, the literal and figurative taste of our city. And not very much, especially in our country, we don't always take pride or preserve things. We tend to be more interested in knocking something down to build something new. And I think to be this sort of touchstone of continuity where people can, through our food, through the fact that we're still there, it's a vehicle for people to connect with their own family stories, their own histories, their own identity. And that's very special.
There's some weight to it as well. We don't want to be the generation, as Niki said, it's amazing to be fourth generation that messes it up or causes a problem. But the connection to our family's history and then the customers' families' histories is really special. And it's just so important to so many people that, my engineer job was sitting in a lab and there was nothing for me to hold on to, but serving you all some fish and bagels is the passion, and seeing smiles on your faces, it makes it all wonderful.
You asked about COVID, and it was so tough. Restaurants the restaurant and bar industry was probably the most hard hit, right? Because we were shut down, and there's no way to bake bagels and serve food through a Zoom. I remember I was in Russ and Daughters Cafe, our restaurant. This was probably 3 weeks into the pandemic, and remember how we all thought that this was going to blow over in 2 weeks? So this was at the 3-week mark when we realized, this is not ending anytime soon. And I went to check on the restaurant, and of course it was, empty. Everything was wrapped up. The chairs were on the table. I mean, I was all alone. And every booth has a large black and white framed photo of, our family. But we intentionally, there are no wall markers like with text to say, this is, the 3 daughters, circa 19, because we actually want people, when they sit in those tables and look at those pictures, to maybe see their own family and their own in these photographs, right? But anyway, I'm there alone, and I start looking at a photograph of our great-grandfather. And it dawned on me, oh, this is our second pandemic, because Joel Russ went through the Spanish influenza of 1918 when his shop was 4 years old, and he and his wife and 3 daughters lived behind the store. And I realized that every generation of our family has had to undergo or go through some calamity. Wars, depression, 9/11. And I realized, oh, okay, this is our calamity. This is our generation's calamity. And if our, 3 generations of Russes got through theirs, we're going to get through this. There is no choice. We're going to do whatever it takes to get through to the other side. And I think having that, metaphorical conversation with the ancestors gave me this ability to, because I could look back, it enabled me to look forward and look down the road to when this was going to be over. And so that really kind of, I think, gave a lot of, infused me with a lot of energy to persevere right when we really needed it. Because then it was 2.5 years. We didn't open our restaurant for 2.5 years.
I gotta say, I'd like you to come and give this as a Rosh Hashanah sermon. I'm serious, right? I mean, we are all looking. We're all looking for something to hold on to be hopeful about the future. Just the food itself makes me hopeful about the future. But what you just said is really like a microcosm of the Jewish people's entire history. Mm-hmm. What you just said about your families, the calamity, whether it was a war or whether it was in the very beginning, 4 years into the business, or where you are now in the 4th generation, to look back and know how resilient your family has had to be in order to survive. Mm-hmm. That's our story, right? I mean, isn't it? It used to be a joke. Now we know how true it is. They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat, right? And and this is the family. This is the family that really epitomizes that.
Yeah, mind you, it was very stressful. Like working every day and hoping that we're not going to kill anyone and the pandemic and everything else. And this 3 weeks in, it was sort of like a low point, and it's this inflection of no, we're going to be okay. Was great. We also had a little luck, because we opened a huge facility in the Navy Yard in Brooklyn, 18,000 square feet. And when we did, in late 2018, when we did that, we were like, we'll use this in 5 or 10 years when we need it. And with the pandemic, our e-commerce shipping business exploded, and there's no way we could have handled it out of any other location except this 18,000 square foot facility. So in this realization and our ability to meet these orders, jumping from 150 orders a day to 500, 600, 700 orders a day, really was a bit of luck, but also it showed our resilience.
Right, and that really showed also what food means in terms of being a first responder. Right. The fact that we could get Russ and daughters here during COVID was pretty profound for many people, I'm sure, because we're the last bastion of the Jewish community before you fall into the ocean. Right. Is LA and San Francisco, and so it's pretty incredible. You shipped it then, you can still keep shipping it now. And as I shared with you before we got up here, is that every time I leave New York, when I go, I stop at Russ and Daughters, almost like it's a synagogue for me. It's like a pilgrimage place. I go and I worship there. I get my favorite thing to bring on the plane. So to be able to take it with me home, sometimes if it's a long flight, I take 2 bagels with me. And I say, we'll just share in case somebody else is hungry, but never makes it the 6 hours to anybody else but me. So
you're not the person on the plane with the quart of herring? No?
I'm not that person. You know how people like it when you open up fish on a plane, right? So, it's something that epitomizes Jewish identity also. That, when you go to New York City, everybody's a favorite thing. And I wonder when you say, like, I'm thinking about that picture of your great-grandfather. And take us back. Why do you think they went into this business 4 generations ago?
Survival. Macht Leben, he had to make a living. Our great-grandfather was a Galicianer. He came in 1907 from a shtetl that is in Poland today, Strzyżew. Maybe there are some Landsmann, in the room. And he had to, survive. And he started out by selling herring, schmaltz herring, out of a barrel on the streets of the Lower East Side. I don't need to tell you, probably many of you can probably retrace your family's roots back to the Lower East Side. This neighborhood was at one point the most densely populated place on earth, but it was for many new arrival Jews the starting point. And herring was 2 things. It was a taste of home, and also it was a cheap form of sustenance. A family could feed itself for 2 meals with 1 herring. You would just brush the herring over a piece of bread, and so the oils would seep into the bread, and so you could have 1 meal that way, and then you'd actually eat the herring later on. So he was very entrepreneurial, as many immigrants have to be. And he took him 7 years from the barrel to getting a pushcart to getting a horse and wagon, and then in 1914 he was able to open up a shop. So we date ourselves from the store opening, but it really started 7 years before that.
She's right.
Okay, good.
To make a living. I mean, this was coming to America. It was like, how do you survive in America?
Right.
He did what it took.
Yeah, and do you think when your great-grandparents were, starting out this business, they had any thoughts about this being a family business? Was there a point at which there was, this is going to the next generation. This is going to our daughters?
Well,
really, honestly, I really don't think so. It really was the way to survive and make a living. And we talk about this a lot around photographs and things that may have been around early on that don't really exist now. Like, there's very few photographs and very few things from those times because it was head down working. This is how our family's going to make a living. But it was sort of understood that family business, who works there? The family. And our grandmother and her sisters were working there as teenagers, not because they wanted to, because that's how our family makes a living.
Yeah. And Russ and Daughters was not the original name. So he wasn't thinking about family in the beginning. The first name of his shop was Russ's Cut Rate Appetizing. He had to compete because there were many other appetizing stores on the Lower East Side. So he had to be cut rate. And then the next name was J. Russ National Appetizing. And there was nothing national about what he was doing. He was, operating within a few square blocks of, feeding the poor Jews of the Lower East Side.
His idea of national was walking to the west side of Manhattan.
Yeah. So it wasn't until 1935 when, by that point, his daughters, Hattie, Ida, and Ann, had worked in the business, that he changed the name to Russ and Daughters, and he made his daughters partners. And we're very proud to be the first business in this country that has "and Daughters" in its name. But let's be honest, if there had been a son, it would have been Russ and Sons.
But there wasn't. There were 3 daughters. There
were 3 daughters.
3 daughters, no sons. This also is very biblical. I don't know if you know the story of Zelophehad's daughters, who in the story in the Torah, where there was this guy Zelophehad, and he, when he died, his daughters came to Moses and said, "This is our inheritance, but according to the laws of Israel, only sons can inherit. We got to change this. They didn't say dude, but we got to change this to Moses. And Moses said, I'll get right back to you. I got to talk to my boss. And Moses went to God, and God said, that makes sense. The daughters should actually inherit the land, even if they don't have any brothers. And so it was because of these 3 daughters, just like Russ and daughters, that things shifted. So I think that it was obviously a big deal that there were 3 daughters who became the owners of this company.
Wow.
Biblical. Everything goes back to the Bible.
Yeah, maybe he thought he, remembered that story. But I also think that he was very shrewd, and he knew that there was no other store that was and daughters, so it was good marketing. And he also knew it'd cause a bit of a stir. I mean, it was very controversial at the time. Customers couldn't understand why he would, ruin his good business with this name. And other customers thought that he had taken a partner, Mr. Daughters.
That's amazing. Of course they did. So whenever I go to New York, I go to Brooklyn, and I go to the store, I often wonder how many of your customers are Jewish and how many aren't Jewish. Like how many other Americans think about that kind of food as American food now and not just Jewish food?
I mean, these days, I don't even know if the majority of our customers are Jewish.
I'd say it's 50-50.
Maybe 50-50. And I remember when we started, I came into the business 23 years ago. There was all this talk of our customers are getting older, they're going to die, what are we going to do? When it was quite heavily Jewish customers. And it sort of began shifting. I don't know if it was the neighborhood or us or the young faces on the business. But at this point, the appetizing, for one, all these foods that we sell, and Russ and Daughters feels like it belongs to New York. And it's not a Jewish thing. Our roots are firmly in Jewish tradition. But it's a New York thing. It really feels like a New York thing. And everyone and anyone, tourists, I mean, Scandinavians and Japanese people, and they come in and say, "This is my food." We're like, yes, it is.
Can you tell us? I want to shift a little bit to the evolution of coming up with this idea of a cookbook after 100 years. What are some of well, first of all, why did you do it? And second of all, it's because it's almost like a family photo album too, which is really great for your kids, for the next generation. No pressure on them to be the 5th generation of the Russ family. Tell us some of your favorite parts of this, and some of your favorite recipes in there.
Well, first back to COVID for a second. I mean, one of the few upsides of COVID is that we found ourselves with more time on our hands. So all of a sudden, we could do a cookbook, which is something that we had thought about for a while. And we wanted to find a way to kind of capture the evolution of Russ and Daughters. Because, for literally 100 years, Russ and Daughters was just our original store on East Houston Street, but now has come to encompass our Jewish bakery, a restaurant. We make delicious cocktails. It has grown, and we wanted a way to kind of tell that story so that the book is structured by those things, the store, the cafe, the bakery. And we wanted to make, yes, it's a cookbook. There are more than 100 recipes. It's a very practical tool. But we wanted to create something that was more than a cookbook, that could tell the history, share stories, and across generations. And also, hopefully, if we did it well, it's a way for people, hopefully, to see their own stories reflected in its pages and want to make the foods that elicit memories for you.
Yeah, as well as this concept of everything we do, every location we open, we hope to give the people that come in this experience of being in Russ and Daughters, and we're sort of trying to emulate the original store and that experience of the customer interaction, and we hope that this book, for people like you in California, can peruse this book and feel some of that experience of stepping into the original store of Russ and Daughters as well.
You asked about favorite recipes. My favorite recipe in this book is probably not the one it's not the obvious one, but it's Aunt Ida's stuffed cabbage. Now, Aunt Ida was the middle of the 3 Russ daughters, and I'm not just saying this because Aunt Ida's son Marty is here today with his daughter Sarita. Aunt Ida's stuffed cabbage. Aunt Ida was famous she was an amazing person, and she made this incredible stuffed cabbage. And growing up, I remember one time going to her house on Long Island, and this is when the 3 daughters were still alive, and I just watched these women. It was like Golden Girls in real life. And the way that these 3 sisters were just bickering and, interrupting each other, but then eating Aunt Ida's stuffed cabbage. And every time my father would go see Aunt Ida, he'd come home with stuffed cabbage, and it was delicious. But Aunt Ida never wrote this recipe down, and she just, made it with a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I wanted it to be in the book, but it meant, so then it became a project. And Marty and I went back and forth, and I called Marty, and I said, Marty, do you have the recipe? No, my mother never wrote anything down. And then it was Marty was trying to remember the taste memory of what it tasted like and what she added. Did she have raisins? Yes, she had raisins. It was, and I would start making it. And then I went to the American Jewish Historical Society, which has the Russ family archives, which sounds like very important, but really it's like a box of random, clippings and things. But anyway,
random Chazarai.
Yeah, it's Chazarai, exactly. But now it's official. But anyway, the HHS has a cookbook in their stacks. They have a whole cookbook collection from the Hadassah ladies from 1970, and it's amazing. And I spent time going through the stacks and finding other recipes of stuffed cabbage that kind of approximated my memory. And so it was this exercise in sort of communing with Aunt Ida and recreating this taste memory. And it was a great day when I overnighted stuffed cabbage to Marty, because he lives in Mountain View, so he was tasting this and then giving me notes, and I'd go back and I'd tweak it, and so it was a great day when Marty said, I think you nailed it.
That's amazing. I think back to your great grandfather. Could he have imagined his great granddaughter shipping his daughter's recipe to his nephew across the country, flying this Eastern European food across the continent to figure out the family recipes? It's kind of amazing. And you just reminded me, because we're talking a lot about the appetizing part, but I wanted to ask you this, Josh. This is I think a very significant Jewish identity question. Floaters or sinkers?
Floaters.
Floaters, okay.
Fluffy. We're talking matzo balls. I don't know if anyone missed that.
We're talking about matzo balls, floaters or sinkers.
Yes.
People.
Okay.
So floaters. And is that your personal preference, or if you served matzo ball soup?
Yeah, absolutely.
Always floaters.
Soft, consistent texture all the way through. No dents. Yeah.
Yes.
We just don't believe in sinkers.
And would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, raise your hand if you're a floater. Interesting. And raise your hand, sinkers. Yeah, you know what? That has been my experience at most Pesach tables. It's like a 75-25 split. And I wonder if it's geographic, or if it also had to do with how impoverished the Jewish community was at the time in terms of schmaltz and the quality of schmaltz, right?
I think what we've come to understand through the restaurant and some challenging dishes that we offered initially is these recipes that people want to experience are matzo ball soup, kashi varnishkis. The real recipe that we've had the most challenge with is matzo brie. It's what they had when they were a kid, which may be 20, 30, 40, 60 years ago, but they have this memory, and they're trying to match that. So the floaters and sinkers, there's no disputing taste, by the way. I just think all you sinkers are a little bit out of whack. So I will criticize you, but there is no disputing taste. But they're looking for that nostalgic experience of what they had from their grandmother or their mother.
Right, which and matzo brie is actually like it's much different than floater sinkers because it's like, do you like it the hard or the soft way? Do you like it the salty or the sweet way? Right, so like that's very important. That's a really important conversation.
We had it on the opening menu and literally took it off. You can come to our restaurant and order matzo brie, which we don't really want you to do, but it's no longer on the menu because we don't never get it right. No one's happy with it.
It got to the point where we had to instruct the servers to ask the guest how they like their matzo brie. And then they'd take that back to the kitchen, and then the kitchen was trying to make this unknown booby's matzo brie. And it turns out that the simplest recipe in the restaurant was actually
our next book,
the one that caused the most trouble.
The unknown booby.
The unknown booby. I love that. That should be your podcast, The Unknown Booby. That, we talk also like if you're in the food business or the restaurant business about mods, about modifying food. And I have to say, in California, it's like a blight in some ways to be in the food business because like we are all about food modification. Right? Like you even know if you invite people over to your home, you ask the dreaded question like, do you have any? Right. And then somebody's like, well, I'll email you. And it's like, gluten-free, I'm not celiac, but my daughter is, and I'm dairy-free, and I'm right? So I think that also might contribute to why we have a hard time with like appetizing and deli here, because people, it's like, who here has actually come up with a great bagel that's gluten-free? Right. I haven't tasted one. Has anybody had a great gluten-free bagel?
Gluten's pretty essential to the bagel.
My dear friend here.
We use high gluten flour. That is.
Mm-hmm.
My dear friend here showed up and she was like, "Do you have the vegan cream cheese?" I was like, "Well, do you have the gluten-free bagels?" We have gluten-free bagels now that are quite good. And don't tell anyone, but I'm not great with gluten.
Oh, really?
Josh Russ. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who knew?
Well, you're welcome here in California
don't
anytime if you're not great with gluten.
But these gluten-free bagels, they somehow take the gluten out of wheat. So if you have a wheat allergy, it's no good, but the gluten is good. Mm-hmm. But the mods, mm-hmm. And I think our next event, which might be LA, the next trip, we will have some gluten-free and mm-hmm. vegan cream cheese if anyone wants to come down to LA. Or not.
It's kind of nice to be, just like...
Yep. Just
no
be like, this is what we're serving and eat it, right? Or you modify it yourself.
It's for me.
Mm-hmm. What's on as a fourth generation family owned business, what's on the horizon? Or any things that you're excited about now that you have, it's like the cookbook is done. Remember for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, not Yom Kippur, but for Rosh Hashanah, it's a great gift. Like your mother tells you to bring like a house gift to somebody. So if you're going for Rosh Hashanah, bring them this. Or Hanukkah's in like 5 seconds after that. It's a great gift. I have it on my coffee table right now. And what is it? When you think about, we've been doing it this way, some of the same things for 4 generations. What are you excited about next?
Well, I've already gotten pitched several times from people here today to open in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Hold your horses. We'll ship it to you. We'll ship it direct. It's so much easier. You just open your door. It's right. The box is there. We're very, ironically, for 2 people who are, we have no retirement plan. Like, we're in this is our life. We hope maybe one of our kids will hopefully want to be the 5th generation. So for people who are doing something long term, ironically, like we don't operate with a 5-year, 10-year plan. It's been, at every step of the way, very organic and just felt like Bashert a little bit in terms of how we've grown. Our restaurant, Russ and Daughters Cafe, was the first kind of expansion, literally after 100 years.
Wait,
so
the
we
restaurant,
also operated
you guys
100
hadn't
years.
done anything new in terms of space in 100 years?
No. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we think in 100-year increments, apparently.
We're planning San Francisco in 2000, 3000?
Yeah.
2000.
around.
Get back to 2125. 2125.
So you should pitch our kids, because, opening a restaurant just felt like a natural extension of our shop, because if you know our store, there's nowhere to sit down. It was very awkward, getting more and more awkward every day, because people were increasingly coming to the store to eat Russ and Daughters at Russ and Daughters, and sometimes would just walk into our kitchen because they just assumed that, well, the tables must be in the back, or we'd have to, send them out to sit on one of the benches on the sidewalk in 20-degree weather. And so we thought, we should open a restaurant. But we weren't restaurateurs. We did not have any experience, like not even a summer job, bussing tables kind of thing. But we felt like if we could, as crazy as it was, like if we just remembered who we were and what we knew, which was our store, our food, this tradition, and we just drew all of the references and from there, and then just the challenge was then how do you turn that into a sit-down restaurant? We thought maybe we could actually pull this off. And similarly, the next big thing we did, which was opening our own bakery, was also born out of, it was not planned, but we, being the torchbearers of this food, historically our family had always relied on kind of independent bagel rollers and bakers, bialy bakers, like these sort of independent suppliers. But the more we saw these classic foods kind of going away or getting so mass-produced, or,
it was becoming harder and harder to control what they were giving us. They were like, yeah, this is what we make. We're like, well, we don't like it.
That, but then also in the just, a bagel, it's really actually quite hard to find a real New York bagel. Like bagels today have become sort of these, the size of your face, and,
do you guys make your own bagels?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All
and now you
goods.
can all make your own bagels too, if you so choose. But yeah, we have a 4,000 square foot bakery, and that, again, we felt like, okay, I guess in order to preserve this food tradition, we have no choice but to start doing all this ourselves, to make a real bialy, real bagels, the same rugelach, the way people tasted it 40 years ago, 60 years ago. And so, yeah, everything has just kind of unfolded, because ultimately what we hope for is that Russ and Daughters, as much as things can change, for us it's actually this interesting, we're always operating in this dialogue, in this kind of tension between preserving tradition, maintaining history, maintaining the sameness of our foods and their tastes and their quality, but then also, you have to move it forward. You have to stay aware of your times. And so actually it's a very fascinating tension, and we're always that's kind of the litmus test for us.
Should we tell them really what's on the horizon for Russ and Daughters, the 4th generation family business? You guys want to hear? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving is a
Christmas,
Jewish holiday,
New
it turns
Year's.
out.
We're approaching the craziest time of year for us, and it's like high intensity, basically from the Jewish holidays through the end of the year.
All right, so
And-
these are your high holy days too.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I want to throw it out and give our audience an opportunity to ask a couple questions for our final few moments together. And so there's a microphone. Who has the microphone?
We'll bring it to you.
Great.
Let's start right here.
Hi, Russ Holstein here, a longtime fan of yours, and I knew your dad a little bit. When you were in San Francisco and my daughter was in New York, and we swapped, and worked out well. But I want to know how you smoke your fish, or who smokes your fish, and who pickles your herring.
So
That sounds like a very intimate question. So who's smoking your fish and who's pickling your herring? Tell us, please.
So there is an old law on the books in New York City that prevents the commercial smoking of fish in Manhattan. It's an old pollution law that no one has ever bothered to do away with. And so from our beginning, our family has worked with a constellation of smokers who smoke to our specs because we've never been allowed to in our own space. And also, again, the store is like, maybe 800 square feet. So we have had this slightly, it's like a love-hate relationship because we know what we want, we know how our specs are supposed to be, and we reject probably on the daily like 30%. And so we have maintained this sort of independence to be able to see how things are running and, sort of adjust accordingly. Yeah.
We work with 3 or 4 local smokehouses, and we're always open to exploring other things. I think there was something out of Santa Barbara a while back.
We imported from Denmark for a while. There was this Danish salmon that we loved and had this pale color. We called it double smoked Danish. And then the Danish government stopped it because the waters, they discovered all these old landmines that had never exploded in the waters. Like, no more. Yeah.
And the pickling? Who's pickling your herring?
We get a base pickled herring from smokehouses, but they don't even do it. They're getting, I don't know if it's fishermen
it's
or like these big
it's North Atlantic.
Yeah, fisheries, but yeah.
And then we finish it off. And
with our sauces and further pickling.
Yeah.
Great.
That was actually going to be my question, so I have a backup question. The candy counter, what is the modern role of that? I know
Not so modern.
in theory, but I'm curious because I think a lot of people are surprised that there's a candy counter.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very funny juxtaposition. You have on one side all these like smoked, cured, pickled fish and spreads and bagels, and then on the other side you have, sucking candies and dried fruit and babka. But
me and Sid, just before, she's doing a wedding after this?
Yep.
And was eating all this stuff. I was like, I'm going to be kind of close to this bride and groom in a huppah. And when we were kids, and in the olden days, the candy counters really made up of hard candies, which I think is, have some herring, put in a crystal mint or something that can...
Right, maybe you guys should have like a Russ and Daughters, after fish mints.
After fish mints.
After fish mints.
that's what's next for Russ and Daughters.
All right.
Rabbi Mintz, thank you very much.
Buy Rabbi Mints after fish mints. All right.
Rabbi Mint.
Actually, the candies, we call it the candy side because it used to be these bins of wrapped hard sucking candies, because everyone probably has some memory of like your bubby or, with like the bowl of sucking candies on the coffee table, right? Well, they would come to our store and buy 2 pounds, 3 pounds. But nobody eats candy like that anymore. So it's evolved, and then now we have our own bakery, so we still call it the candy side, but it's really more like the bakery side, for babka and rugelach and macaroons, things like that.
We're gonna have a taste of that in a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna finish today with a taste of that.
But when you come to Russ and Daughters Cafe and the check is dropped, it comes with a handful of hop cheese. Hop cheese are a Dutch coffee candy, wrapped candy. Like the Dutch call it hopjes, but the Jews call it hapjes. And
I think Marty's pulling them out
Marty
of his pockets
has
somehow.
pulling some out of his pockets.
There-
I mean, there you go. Antida would be so
Marty,
happy.
you still have a bowl of hard candy in your counter? At home? Yeah. Yeah. See?
But I
Times
remember,
change.
yeah. So there's still like this nod to the candy side. I remember one time I was talking to a guest. He was sitting at the bar, and the bar is really more like a counter. And he was telling me about his memories of his, bubby and whatever. He's an older man. And I just had this feeling, I don't know why, but I took a handful of hopjes and I was like a pickpocket or something. I like slipped it into his pants. That sounds really bad. But somehow it was okay.
Where's Avi?
It was
Where's our
not
director of
creepy.
human resources?
But anyway, he walked away, and he at some point later, was like, "What is this?" And he pulled out some hopjes, and he told me he started to cry. So yeah, so the candies, that they have a life.
A life and a nostalgia, because this is all about, is, the nostalgia that makes us feel really good, this kind of food. One more question, and
We could do
two more questions.
Two or three.
Okay, two-ish questions is the two-ish questions. Bring it.
Thank you, first of all, for coming out. Thank you for the nice spread. I'm concerned about the future of bagels, and I would like to know, in your opinion, if you add a blueberry or a jalapeno to a bagel, is it still a bagel?
Oh.
No comment? Do we offend people
I'll
in San Francisco
comment.
by saying
That is not a
absolutely
bagel.
not?
You will not find blueberry, jalapeno, Asiago, rainbow bagel. No. As far as we will go is cinnamon raisin. But even that, like if you dare put some smoked fish on a cinnamon raisin bagel.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I don't know if this story made it here, but Cynthia Nixon, the actor from she was actually running for governor. And in New York, every elected official who's campaigning is asked what their bagel order is, right? And she was asked, and she said it was a cinnamon raisin bagel with cream cheese and Nova. Out of the race. Out of the race. That was it.
Yes, that's what I heard. I heard it cost her entire political career went down because of her bagel order. I thought, I know
you are not a New Yorker. How?
Right. And I know that like the whole bagel thing. We all, even though we're like, we're crazy. We live in California. We do agree about that with the bagels. I thought the more serious question was going to be about like what's going to happen in terms of fish, like wild caught salmon. Do you see the prices increasing? Is it, I have as you know, I told you I do a lot of subsistence net fishing in Alaska during the summer, and I think about, is there going to be enough fish for the future?
Well, we've actually carried a wild Pacific King salmon, smoked salmon, for years, and it's very hard to come by these days. So we're not carrying it right now. We hope it'll be back, but that is an issue for certain. And all this other fish is farmed in the best possible ways. We're not controlling the farms, but yeah, it's farmed, and the wild fish. I mean, maybe it's better that it's not commercially available now because hopefully they're doing something about the populations. But yeah, it's a concern.
Yeah, I can't imagine the world without smoked salmon, really. Last question. Yep, okay, great.
On? Yes. I'm going to make a plug for the sable. If the customers want to do their part in saving some salmon for everybody, we could dip into that. So my question is not going to be who your favorite customer is, but can you tell us a story of one of your longtime characters who comes into the store? There's so many. Sorry. Yeah.
this is not a character, but this is just the first memory or thought that came to mind. There was a gentleman who came in it was towards the end of the day, so the store was pretty quiet. And we had seen him there before, but we didn't know him that well. And he was kind of just standing in the corner. And so, of course, he was asked if, he could be helped. He's like, no, I'm fine. The other counter person asked, can I help you? I'm fine. Everyone was trying to help this guy. And he was refusing the help. And then finally he said, do you mind if I just stand here? It's my father's yard site. He used to bring me here. And I just want to remember him. So, yeah. Do you have a good story?
That was.
I was thinking of the token Jew.
What's that?
The weed smoking guy.
Oh. Different story.
Not really a long time customer, but
I go for the tearjerker. He goes for the weed.
No, there was some weird Jewish weed brand that wanted. He was like, "Oh, do you want to do some collaboration?" I was like, "No." And like outside, there was this rabbi smoking a joint like in front of the store, and we were like, "Why here? And is that really a rabbi? Like, what's going on?" But like a Hasidic guy. Anyway,
They are.
Silliness.
But he's on Instagram called Token Jew.
I think so.
Tokin Jew.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, I don't find that you need to be high to enjoy your food. It doesn't even help. I mean, your food is so good on its own. We don't need weed. We're good enough. That's right. Okay.
We've got the after fish mints,
One more question?
One last question right
Okay.
here. So many ethnicities have delicatessens. There are Jewish delis, Italian delis, Japanese delis. But only Jews have appetizing. So what do you know about the origins of the term? Does it come from Yiddish? Is it Yinglish? Because I bet a large percentage of the people here today didn't know what appetizing was.
You're right. We would be remiss. Thank you for that question, because that is kind of important topic. And Yinglish, it is in fact Yinglish. I know Spanglish, but I never thought of Yinglish. But in fact, that is what it is. So appetizing comes from the Yiddish word Vorspeis, which means appetizers, because these are foods that were smoked, pickled, cured, ready to eat. So when you came home from shul, you came home from a wedding, if you were having a bris, these you didn't have to, they were all ready to be put out to serve. Most likely, a Yiddish speaker someone like our great-grandfather was trying to translate Vorspeis, and instead of saying appetizer, said appetizing, and it stuck. So, yes, it's the sister food tradition to delicatessen. So, kashrut laws prohibit the consumption of meat and dairy together. So a delicatessen in its strictest form is where you go for smoked, cured meats, right? Pastrami, corned beef, etc. And then the appetizing store is for fish and dairy. So, that classic trifecta of bagels, cream cheese, and smoked salmon, which today we just commonly refer to as bagels and lox, that is, for people who don't know what appetizing is, I'll say, do you like bagels and lox? Of course. Well, that's appetizing. Appetizing is a really born and bred New York Jewish food tradition, because it was the Jews who came to the Lower East Side who were kind of like trying to, nobody was eating smoked salmon back in, the shtetls, but to, kind of adapt to their new surroundings and bring like bialys and bagels and start making them here. But it really kind of stayed a New York thing, because as Jews got established and, moved away, people did not, they wanted to, start a new life and maybe leave behind some of the foods of their past. So appetizing really is a very niche tradition, but also the word never took off the way that delicatessen is. Like, as you said, the corner store is a deli, but even a lot of New Yorkers don't know the word appetizing.
And
so
Russ
now
and
you've
daughters.
all been, now you're part of our mission.
Russ and Daughters,
You can't-
not a deli. Don't call us a deli.
Well, I love the fact that we're going to end on when you said that it probably was like the entire tradition of appetizing came from some immigrant who spoke Yiddish and couldn't quite get the English. Instead of calling it appetizer, it's called appetizing, and that we have our distinct ethnic Jewish cultural flair when it comes to our food. And 4 generations of the Russ family, and hopefully many generations later, I hope I'm going to be bringing my grandchildren to eat at Russ and Daughters, not so soon, but in the next few years when I have some. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So again, thank you, Niki, Josh, Rabbi Sidney, for such a meaningful and lively conversation. Thank you all for being a part of this milestone, our final program in Canbar Hall as we know it. Rabbi Sidney, I was going to ask you to do a Nua Heshesh, which is a reverse Shehechianu, which if you know Shehechianu, that's when you say a blessing for something new that's happening. So anything that would be similar to that?
Of
To say
course.
goodbye
I'll
to
give you my
something?
Yom Kippur sermon from 2 years ago. You guys got 45 minutes? No, I'm kidding. No, that would not be a blessing right now. No, but what I will say, and we started off with this one, many of us know how important Lidor Vador is, right? From one generation to the next. And you shared that, when I came out here after college, before I went to rabbinical school, I ran the teen program in the old iteration. How many people here remember? The old JCC was built in the 1930s, right? This building in this location. And this is the new iteration. And there have been generations of Jewish families in San Francisco who have raised their kids here and are so affiliated and so dedicated to this building and to the culture the JCC has always brought to San Francisco. So what I like to say is, whenever it is that you're going to open up, and may you be as full as you are today, and may you go chazak, chazak, v'nid chazek. May this campaign in this room strengthen you and the community as we go forward, because we really need the JCC to be strong, because we need to be strong. Shalom.
Thank you. So with that, from all of us at the JCCSF, we want to thank you for helping us to close this chapter of Canbar Hall with joy, delicious Jewish soul food, and a reminder of what community is all about. We'll see you back in the spring in the beautiful new Canbar Hall for more food, culture, and connection. And now we invite you out to the atrium for dessert, schmoozing, and a book signing, thanks to Omnivore Books. Thank you.